Hello. Hello. Hi, Rose. Hello. Happy Thursday. I um I have no idea what we're going to talk about tonight because I'm just getting on and I am a little brain dead from my week. Not really. Um, that's a better way to say that. I am spent, I guess, is a good way to say that. I hope that if you're new here, well, if you're new here, you don't know me. I'm Leslyn. I'm a therapist by day, and my lives are just really a way for me of getting back. So I generally do kind of a generalized Dear Abby style Q&A. So if you have a question or you need a little help with something, don't hesitate to ask. And there's typically a really good community of people in here who are super supportive and kind and empathetic if that's what you need tonight. Hopefully you'll hang out and just let us know where you're from. I have some great moderators, so if you have a particular question and I'm in the middle of talking, I tend not to look down. Otherwise, I get super distracted and lose my train of thought. But my moderators will pin the question and make sure that I get to it. In the meantime, I always have a glass of wine with me because it is the end of my work week. Hi, Bonnie. How are you? And feel free to just sit back and relax. I hope you have had a great week, Bonnie. Um, good. Good. I'm glad to hear it. Hi, Robin. How are you? Happy Thursday to you. Ooh, so relationships, and I'm assuming, is this like all relationships 579, or is it, hi Amy, how are you? Um, is it your partnership, or is it like husband and wife? So that might be one of the hardest things that a married couple can go through, I would think, is a child having a life-changing health issues. I mean, there really isn't anybody who cares about your child more than you and the other parent, right? Um, and so, I suppose um, good, Bonnie. We could let me finish answering these questions, and then I will pick up on that because I think I hear something there. 579, are you open to being a little bit more specific? Because I'm thinking there are probably a dozen different points that we could talk about here, whether it's how you guys process emotions differently, if there's some kind of a grief reaction that one of you is taking and the other is not willing to take it yet. If there's, and I don't mean grief from loss of life necessarily, but grief from the perspective that I can imagine that there's the possibility that somebody might have to grieve the life they thought their child was going to be living. I can imagine there's also disparities on how you approach this problem. There could just be individual disparity. Well, that would be coping with the emotions, like just the individual differences in how you address challenges like that. Sometimes somebody comes out, ready to fight, and the other person just retreats. and goes into avoidance or denial. Um, okay. Um, you know, my primary recommendation is always going to be talk, 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 talk. The more you can talk about it, the better off the outcome will be eventually. Now, some things are almost impossible to talk about, right? I would say, find something you can agree upon. And in this case, it sounds like maybe one of the things you can agree upon, there might be a couple things. One is to focus on the facts and not the fears. Because sometimes we can get super carried away in the fear, and that takes us out into the stratosphere where nothing productive can happen. And by the way, this is true for anybody who's listening. This is true of just life stressors or problems in general. But I think that especially if a husband and wife or partners, parents are trying to stabilize, the first thing you have to do is get control of your own emotions. So I would say surround yourself individually with a support network. One of the things that's really interesting about any kind of big emotional / grief experience, and I'm using the big umbrella of grief here, big emotional experiences, is that when it happens in families tend to be our support systems very frequently. Our partners tend to be our support people. But if we're both negatively impacted from a situation or an event, we might not have the capacity to support anybody, let alone ourselves. And so when the people who traditionally lean on us for support approach us, it's really important to have an awareness of your capacity for giving support, for your need of receiving support, and then honestly evaluate what you have to give. My graduate research was in grief and social support systems. Now, one of the reasons I chose that topic is because while I was in grad school, my mother and both of her parents passed away within 3 months of each other. And what I witnessed was my remaining 2 aunts and uncle who had lost half of their family. They pretty much fell apart. And they weren't able to be supportive of one another. And they all 3 had very different grief reactions and very different grief processes. So I think that when you notice that those differences exist, don't ignore them. They're not right or wrong. They're not good or bad. They're simply individual differences that have to be respected. And we tend to want people to relate to us by behaving the way that we're behaving or reacting the way that we're reacting, because that feels super empathetic. So I think accepting the process that your partner is going through, looking elsewhere for support until your partner is able to engage, kind of modulate their experience and engage with you. Focus on facts, not feelings. Self-care out the gazoo, to the extent that you have access to that. This is one of those times when our inclination and our need seems to be to reach out for support. But as I've been saying, sometimes that external support isn't readily available. And so we really have to know, how do I care for myself in this moment? Let's see what else. Does that kind of cover, maybe, is any of that helpful to your specific situation? Because truly, if I put a little time into thinking about this, or if I had the ability to kind of, hi Bella, I'm glad you're here. If I had the opportunity to interview you, you know, it's that could, although I can't provide therapy online. So, yeah, let me know if that's helpful. I had someone ask me recently if, and maybe we talked about this in the Tilt call at the end of October. I can't remember exactly. I identified what you're looking for. Good. I hope that helps. I can't exactly remember where this conversation took place, but I remember speaking with somebody who wanted to know if I would do a live coaching session, if you will. Now, I've thought long and hard about this, because I think that I could absolutely do a live coaching session, and I would have the other person in the room, but I would have to be incredibly careful about what it is that we're talking about, because again, I cannot provide therapy to someone in a public forum. It's just not appropriate. And so I would do it pro bono, if gratis. Can't remember exactly what the right term is there. But I would, I want to do it to give people an opportunity to see, how I work, but maybe even more importantly, see what it would be like to sit down with a coach and work toward authenticity, or to develop a personal growth plan. And so I've been really thinking about how I could do this, and I wanted to get your feedback on that, and if y'all thought maybe that it was a good idea. And while you think about that, I'm going to do a little commercial. First of all, if you're new here, hi, my name is Leslyn. I'm a therapist by day, and I come into my lives on Mondays and Thursdays as a way of just giving back and supporting people and offering some kind of general advice. I have a favor, if you haven't already done so. I know some of my subscribers have already done it, but I am going to be developing e-courses for 2024, and I want to know what kind of topics people are interested in learning in micro courses. So these would be short, probably 60 to 90 minute long courses for more than likely under $15, $20, $15, if that. And they're going to be very encapsulated topics. So for example, I think that question that 579 just asked, what can a couple do if they're faced with a life-altering event and they're struggling to come together? I think that's actually a great question, because that's a real life stressor. hello, Melissa. Um, anyway, the reason that what I'm asking you to, thank you for that. What I'm asking you to do is to go to my link in bio, and there is a link for a survey, and I'm just kind of collecting responses from the survey, so that I can assess what to start with. And when you go to the link in bio, you'll notice there's a link for my new book. It just came out this week. It's called Inner Echoes, 365 Days of Introspection. And the feedback so far has been so good on this. Although somebody told me I could have made it 36 years of introspection, because she said there's no way I would be able to take the time to sit down and really dive into one question a day. But it's 365 questions that have you thinking about yourself from the inside out across 12 different topics. And it's on Amazon. The link is on my bio. So happy. You can use it. You can just use it for a lot of different things. Honestly, I think about this, and I think about taking a question to your therapist and saying, I've been thinking about what fuels my motivation, because I haven't been feeling very motivated, and I want to dive into that question a little bit more. Like, I have a friend who's a therapist, and she bought the only copy I had last weekend, and she goes, I'm going to be asking my clients these questions. So I think that's super cool. It would make a fantastic Christmas present for people in your lives. It's a really great way to foster emotional connection with a partner. So there it is, Inner Echoes. The link is in my bio. Have fun. Okay, that's it for commercials. Let's see. Question. Amy, I saw a comment from you, and I hope that doesn't put a crimp into the Christmas choir plans. I imagine it probably does, but I think you guys are all really profound seasoned performers, so I can imagine that it's going to be just fine. And thank you, Melissa. I'm excited actually about, and I think I said that, I'm excited about the book. So does anybody have any questions? And before I go, I've been pulling intentions for the night, so I'm going to do that. If anybody wants an intention, we all live in such a busy world, and sometimes we forget to just slow down and be intentional. So here is the deck of intention cards. I pulled one this morning, and then I was cleaning my desk and I pulled it back without really committing it to memory. So let's do it again, and I'll make it my intention while I sleep tonight. Here we go. Well, I did this anyway. Today, I will practice active listening in all of my conversations. And of course, as a therapist, I get paid to do that. Active listening can be hard to do. Now, I'm a trained listener, but I think about the way that I engage with people sometimes when I'm not working, and I'm not always an active listener when I'm not working. I think sometimes I do it so much that I get tired and I don't want to listen to anybody else, which is I mean, I can imagine that that is rational and logical, but it's not always helpful. So I would ask you, and you could use this, by the way, as a reflection question. That was your card? Oh, you're saying the card you pulled for yourself, Melissa? I didn't see you pop in. Hello. Are you saying that your card today was funny? Or made you, or you're laughing? Sometimes, sometimes I don't get it. Anyway, if anybody else wants a card tonight, I will pull a card for you. I think I have 6 decks left. If anybody wants a deck, oh, you pulled all of that. That's right. Melissa, absolutely. Let's see. Okay, here you go. I hope this is relevant for you. Today, I will share my experience and wisdom with others. What I really love about these is sitting down, pulling it in the morning, and creating an intention for the day. It really gives you something concrete to focus on. One of my subscribers, you're welcome, one of my subscribers sent me a picture of her deck. She won it in October, and she has it on her desk at the, Lisa, before they're gone. So shoot me, you did shoot me an email. I think I responded and I didn't hear back from you, I think. Anyway, or you can just go right to Etsy, and that way it takes care of the payment. By the way, that link is in my bio too. That way it takes care of it, and I can just print the shipping label and it'll go out tomorrow. I'm pretty sure I have 6 decks of these left. I also have 10 affirmation card decks. Those are not on Etsy because I only had 10 decks. But they're the same price. So if you want that, you could always buy 2 and just let me know in the buyer notes that you want 1 of each. And it's free shipping. So anyway, did anybody else want one? And Melissa, if you were saying at the retreat, that's true, you did. So Melissa was at the retreat. By the way, that's also happening. I have a lot like getting ready to activate this week. If anybody's interested, I will be putting out an early invitation for all of my subs. Oh, that's awesome, Melissa. I wish I could see it. For all of my subs, for all of my all of the past attendees, and anybody that they want to refer, there's going to be a discount, so keep your eyes out for an email for that. The next retreat is in March. I'm pretty sure it's March 13th through the 17th or the 14th through the 18th, whatever that Thursday through Sunday is. There's something else I was going to talk about, and I can't remember now. I don't know. Do you guys use Chat GPT by any chance? Have you gotten into using the AI technology? By the way, Melissa, the shirt you asked me about, I actually wore it on Monday night. It's now in my TikTok shop, and it comes in 2 colors. Okay? Comes in blue and white. And I don't have it on Zazzle where you bought the other stuff, but I have it in my TikTok shop. So I meant to email you when I got that put on, and I forgot. Robin, you use ChatGPT. I was an early adopter with that early last fall. And then, isn't that pretty? Thanks, Lisa. And so this week, just because I like to play, and the more you guys get to know me, the more you know that I just like to play. I like to play with things. I like to create things. And when I heard that they rolled out that any of us can create GPTs, I was like, oh yeah, I am creating some GPTs. So I created 3. I created one specifically as a therapist resource. I created one that's everybody's mom. And I created another one that's a self-help guru. So they're all public at the moment. I'm not sure I know really what I'm doing with them, but I wanted to get them out there right, bright and early, because I think those are 3 areas, kind of like on Reddit, right? That there's all these big conversations going in that arena. Time differences. Because last night she called it like 20 after 11. And then she was surprised to find out that I was sleeping. And she knows I'm in my live. It's 9 p.m. on a Thursday. She knows that. And she's probably going, shoot, that's right, Mom's in her live. So anyway, cheers to you guys. I want you to know too that my voice was doing so well today. And then in my 6 o'clock appointment, these people had listened to several episodes of my podcast. In my podcast, there's a communication series. And so I often will send clients to that particular section of podcasts that I did in 2019, so that it kind of gives them a jump start into the work that we would do in couples therapy. Well, they listened to a couple of episodes and took notes and had questions. And I have to tell you how excited I was that somebody took that assignment so seriously. I honestly think it's a therapist's great joy when their clients get serious about the work. And I'm not saying that you have to be serious about every session, or that we're disappointed if you're not taking the work or doing the work a particular way. I'm not trying to say that at all. I'm only saying, so take it at face value, how excited we get when our clients show up excited to do the work and change and make improvements in their life. It's a lot what I get out of the retreat when I do the retreat, because the people who come to the retreat are just so, generally speaking, so eager to be sponges and absorb the information. And so anyway, I got so tickled about these clients who were asking all these questions and had written things down that I projected a little bit more than my healing voice was ready for. So now it's strained. And it's one of those weekends I get to go wedding dress shopping with one of my daughters this weekend. And we're doing it a little non-traditionally. She ordered a whole bunch of dresses and they're here. And so we're kind of doing a wedding dress fashion show try on here at home, mostly because she's not a big shopper. She doesn't really like going shopping. But I think that'll be so much fun. It's just her sisters and I. The bride, her sisters and I. And, oh, thanks, Robin. That's so cute. So that's going to happen. And then tomorrow, this little mop of mine is getting another shot at some curls. The last time, so most of you probably know this. I'm looking that most of you who are in here probably know this, but a year and a half ago, I got a perm and loved the way my hair responded. Loved it. Like it was just the perfect hair for me. And then like perms do, over time, it started to straighten out. And, you know, my hair grew and she would cut. And so she did it again. And if you go back into my content, you will see because whew, did it curl. Like, I don't know what she did different, but that perm was like, wow. And I came home and washed it immediately and put mayonnaise on it. Like I thought about everything I ever did back in the 80s when we would perm our hair all the time. But it was tight for a while. And it stayed kind of tight and frizzy. And so eventually that also, you know, it's the beautiful thing about perms, that also just kind of fizzled out. And so I went in about a month ago and the same thing. I said, well, not the same thing, but I said, okay, we're not going to do that again. I really want it to be like it was a year ago, April. So we had a strategy. And man, when that 7-minute timer went off, I'm like, okay, take it out. But it was perfect that day, but it didn't even make it like to the end of that week before I had body, but the curl didn't stay. And now there's just like, this is just air dried, but there's really no curl. There's nothing. So tomorrow we're going to try again. And I'm going to keep my fingers crossed that it's a little bit just curly, but not curly. So you won't get to see it until Monday. And we're just going to keep our fingers crossed that it works out the way that it's supposed to work. So the trials and tribulations of hair. I wish here's my whole point. That whole year and a half that I had, well, at least the 9 months that I had the great curls, I could just wash and go. Wash, put in a little bit of product, do this, and then go. And all I ever had to do was like finger comb my hair. It was perfect. And I got so acclimated to doing that because for, 2 decades, every morning it's wash, dry, style, wash, dry, style. And I used copious amounts of hairspray, which not only isn't good for my hair, it's not good for my bathroom, it's not good for anything. And the reason is because without some kind of curl or styling, my hair literally just falls flat to my head. And when I wake up in the morning, there's really nothing you can do with it. You have to go wash it, dry it, and style it. And I'm just over wanting to do that, but I still want a decent look with very little trouble. So we're going to try it again. I know that was a lot of information, and who the heck cares, but there you go. Let's see. What else? Far too much work. It is far too much work. But all those years that I was able just to pull my hair into a pony and wrap it up in my head, there just comes a time when that's no longer age appropriate. And I've hit that mark, I think, at least in my mind, for me. So, many perms in the 80s. I know, Robin, that's the way it was. So I just said, I'm bringing the perm back, but my hairdresser needs a little experimenting with. I mean, the fact that that first perm turned out so perfect. And honestly, I don't know how many other creators are like this, but I've been on TikTok now 3.5 years. And if you just keep going all the way through my content, you will get the biggest kick out of how many freaking hairstyles I've had. Because in the very beginning, I was probably, yeah, but Melissa, I'm older than that. And there, yeah, anyway. You actually, my dear, are more advanced than I in some areas, and I admire you for that. I actually learned from you for that, so thank you, and thank you for the reminder to be aware of that. You're all about the days for hat and hair and ponytail. Your hair's out of control. Stacy, you have curly hair. You know, and I know everybody always wants what they don't have, but anyway. Oh, I was talking about, so if you go all the way back to like May, you can tell I need a haircut, May of 20. And then sometime that summer, my sister-in-law came up and cut my hair because I wasn't going anywhere. And the gal who was doing hair had shut down her salon. So my sister-in-law cut my hair, and you can tell. And then pretty much I kept like this pretty basic style, but it's still every day wash, dry style. And then eventually I was able to get it cut. It's just kind of a hoot to go through and look at how many freaking hairstyles I've had in 3.5 years. I find it quite humorous, but it's especially humorous because there was a time when I had just long straight hair that I was going through photographs and recognizing the fact that I'd had the same hairstyle for like 20 years. And that's when I went from long hair to short hair. I remember I found a new stylist who was really renowned at the time in our area. I paid a ridiculous amount of money. And he went in and he's moving his hands through my hair, and he's like, hair is a lot like fabric, and you just don't know what shape it's going to take until you get your hands in it. So he played with my hair, you know, and he's behind me in the mirror, and he's just doing this. And then he takes a razor blade and just starts slicing. And I've given him creative freedom. And I went in there with hair probably down to here, just long straight hair, maybe a little bit longer in the back. And I walked out of there looking like Hillary Clinton. Like, I walked out of there looking so different that for a month people passed me in the grocery store that I'd known for 10 and 15 years. My kids got off the school bus and they're walking up like, who's that woman in the driveway? So that was interesting. But since then, I've probably had a different hairstyle, like 20 different hairstyles since then. So anyway, there's that. Does anybody have any questions? And by the way, if you're hanging out and you're new and you're just here for fun, please say hi and let me know where you're from. And if you don't know me, I'm Leslyn. I'm a therapist, and I just pop in on my lives on Monday and Thursday nights as a way of giving back and helping people out, answering questions, kind of Dear Abby style. The Dorothy Hamill was very popular. You went from knee-length hair. Holy moly. Did you donate your hair, Stacy? Or Stacy, Melissa, did you donate your hair? My girls did that quite a bit. They would grow it out and then wait till they had 10 inches to cut off and then go get it cut off and donate it. But that's like knee-length hair. Holy moly. And how long you had the Dorothy Hamill too, Bonnie? And regretted it ever since. Oh my gosh. You didn't know if it was a thing. That's wild. Oh, you didn't know if donating was a thing back then. I hear you. How long did it take you? They talked to you. Oh, Bonnie. I'm dying to know how long it took you to grow your hair to knee length. Like that just seems... It just seems like it would just get in the way every time. I think I would have a headache from having all that weight. I guess you get used to it. You were only 10. Oh, wow. Wow. So you probably had not really had a haircut if you were 10. That's crazy. Rosie told me, my daughter-in-law told me the other day that she was going to let Jack's hair grow and allow him to be a little skater boy. I don't know why I'm saying that. A long-haired boy, which is fine. But when I think of long-haired boys, I think of skater boys. No major cut. That's pretty crazy. I had a couple of sessions this week where people were demonstrating really significant forward momentum in their growth. And it's always so great to see that. You know, one of the things that I think is really interesting about my job is how many people... this isn't going to be a surprise probably to you, but it's not quite this simple, but how many people judge where they are and not just what they've done, but kind of the way they feel. I was talking with someone on Tuesday, and I think 20 minutes into our session, I said, I just need to ask you to stop for a second and pay attention to the language you're using when you describe yourself. Because I'm feeling really sad for how self-deprecating you are. And he looked at me like I was kind of silly. And he goes, what do you mean? And so I repeated back to him what I had heard. And he's like, I said that? And I said, well, that's what I heard. And he's like, that's my father talking to me. And I said, He said, I wasn't even aware that I talk like that about myself. He says, like, I am consciously changing or looking for those words so that I don't use them when I talk to other people. I would never talk to my own children that way, he said. And then, but because it's so subconscious and it's so embedded in kind of the bedrock of who he is, he just kept describing himself that way. And, you know, very, very judgmental words like lazy, unmotivated. What was the thing he said that it was really sad? Oh, that he just really believes that he's a nuisance. And he had had a really difficult experience over the weekend. And I said, listen, try not to let yourself go a whole week between sessions if a short little phone call or quick 15-minute FaceTime session is going to help you get back on track. Because if you're going along, you get derailed, I don't want you just to sit there injured for a whole week. And we can get you back up on the track. And I said, you know, it's not your job to pay attention to my boundaries. That's my job. And I'm good at it. And if I can't answer the phone, I won't. But leave me a message. Let me know that you're having a hard time. And when I have the opportunity, I will reach back out. He goes, oh, I just don't want to be a nuisance. I'm like, why would that cross your mind? Well, because that's, you know, you have better things to do than to work with me. And I'm like, wow, can you hear yourself? And I think that it's so important to pay attention to your self-talk. So important to pay attention to that. I had I know it's so sad, isn't it, Robin? I had a really interesting conversation with my brother today. My brother, and so he's the brother that's a full brother, and he's 9 years younger than me. And I would say he's very definitely one of my best friends. Probably always has been from the moment he's born. I'm pretty convinced that we're soul mates in the sense that we've traveled in time together before. And at one point, especially after Rocky died, he was a teenager. And gosh, was he even a teenager? Yeah, he was like just a teenager, 14, 15. And we had this really, really interesting conversation about what if, that was probably the very first time I'd even considered the idea of reincarnation. And he said, what if when you die, you don't, like, your soul doesn't die? And that kind of started me thinking about this whole separation, right? Because we were raised Catholic and we were trained that your soul goes to heaven and has eternal life. But we really started talking about, like, what does it mean that your soul lives on? And we, to some extent, that was kind of the very, very beginning of my interest in afterlife. And of course, it was ignited by my husband's death at the time. But the point of describing that is that Pat has been kind of a partner in my curious explorations, and an equal partner. He's been, for the most part, really, at least up to a certain point, equally invested in the questions. And so What's also interesting is back in the late 90s when I was going through all this turmoil in my marriage, and then by the early 2000s when my marriage fell apart and I went through all that trauma, he was just getting married and having children. And so our lives really kind of diverged. And I went through this period where I started to become a voracious reader for all things spiritual. And not just religious, but really kind of went down this rabbit hole. I've talked about that a lot, of spirituality and parapsychology and transcendentalism and transpersonal psychology. Like I just read and read and read and read. And he was pretty wrapped up in his career and his kids. And so he became less of a partner, a talking point partner at that time. And then, of course, we know I went to grad school and I really embraced psychology. And then I got dove into the self-help genre. And in between there, I went back to the church and I was Bible study. So I had like this really wide breadth of information. And then as a therapist for the last 15 years, I've also had tons of continuing ed, and I continue to read pretty voraciously and stay curious. And I've had training in hypnosis and mindfulness and in trauma and blah, blah, blah. Well, anyway, all of that is to say that we're on the phone today, and he's been going through some stuff recently, and I noticed he was a little anxious. And so I was reminding him that anxiety wasn't going to be effective for the things that he's doing. And I said, if you'd like to, I'll teach you a couple of breathing exercises. I guess it started because he watched a series on Netflix about the mind. And he's like, did you know memory is blah, blah, blah? And did you know mindfulness does this and this? And I am just sitting there going, yeah, Pat, I did. Yeah, you're a little late, Pat. You are. It's nice to know you're catching up. And then we talked about mindfulness. He goes, oh, well, yeah, I guess as a therapist, you would know that. And I said, well, actually, I'm a certified mindfulness instructor. And he goes, you are? I said, yes. He's like, how did I not know that? I don't know. I don't know everything there is to know about real estate. He's a real estate agent. And he goes, yeah, that makes sense. Anyway, it was super cute. And I think I told you that because we were talking about mindfulness. And I just want to reiterate that mindfulness / especially mindful meditation can be somewhat of a panacea. And a panacea is like a magic pill, a magic fix, a magic solution. The problem with that is that it's not an instantaneous one, right? You don't just literally swallow a pill. But if you can create a mindful habit, truly a mindful habit, where mindfulness embodies the majority of your waking time, you won't have any problems except when you forget to be mindful. And somebody said to me today, well, I just didn't have time to meditate. Okay. First of all, that's an excuse. Secondly, I'm not telling you to meditate. I'm telling you to be mindful. Being mindful means that you are conscious and intentional in the majority of what you do moment to moment. And you're aware. And we can be mindful doing almost everything that we do. Right? When I pick up my wine, I can be mindful by noticing that the glass is colder than my hand, that the wine is moving in the cup and the light shines on it, and I really think the color of this wine is cool. And then when I taste it, I'm mindfully savoring the experience of having it in my mouth, the flavor, the way that it expands throughout my mouth, the sensation of swallowing. Like, mindfulness is acute attention. Sounds good. It is. Hi, Linda. And I really hope to inspire anybody who wants more peace in their life. And I know that the entire mental health field is espousing mindfulness. But we're espousing it because it has the potential to be a panacea. It's really important that you hear that. Yes, Robin. I can't remember. I think I passed it along. You guys, Bonnie and Melissa, did I pass along the app that Linda talked about in our last sub discussion? If I didn't, I'll do that tomorrow morning. There are so many. I did. Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much. Whether it's that, whether you get on YouTube, whether you start just getting, hello, Bree, I hope you're doing amazing. Whether you just get in a habit of getting up every morning, it could be as simple as getting in the shower and having a savoring experience in the shower, and do that one day a week. And the next day you're going to play YouTube about teaching you about mindfulness while you take a shower. And if you get up in the morning and you do your hair and you put on makeup, use that time to listen to a book. Maybe The Untethered Soul. By the way, I just want to remind you guys, we're going to, in January, be discussing The New Codependency by Melody Beattie. I had to order another copy, so when it comes in and when my voice comes back, I'll create some content just to remind you. And Joel, thank you for the follow. For those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, every other month I'm doing a book discussion of a book that I include in a Heal and Grow series. And yes, Michael Singer's podcast. Good for you, Bonnie. Because if you do this work, I promise you it pays off. Listening to podcasts, listening to you, finding YouTube channels, finding TED Talks, reading books, going to therapy and processing through, even if you go once a month, and process through the things that come up for you, the problems with daily living, the places you get stuck, the things you've heard that you're like, that's bullshit. Or the things you've heard that's like, oh my God, I feel this in my bones. That's where peace comes from. That's where peace, happiness, and contentment come from. So I'm going to leave us tonight, try to salvage what I have left of my voice. Bonnie's recommendation tonight is to listen to Michael Singer's podcast. I didn't even know Michael Singer had a podcast, so thank you for that. Michael Singer is the author of An Untethered Soul. And it's both it's a book about spirituality and achieving actualization. But we're going to read The New Codependency as a group. You didn't either. He explains it. Good. And Lisa, don't forget, if you want a deck of cards before they're gone, just hop on my LinkedIn, my link in bio, my link tree, and grab a deck off my Etsy account. And that goes for anybody else. I think there are 6 or 7 decks left. So, good night, everybody. Have a wonderful weekend. Take good care of yourselves, and don't forget to be mindful.